Favorite here in StarCraft II.
Yeah, kind of closely matched by stats, though. I know ByuN has a really fun play style, very aggressive is what he was known for and is still known for, although in this matchup he's been a little uncertain. And stats was just a, nice player to watch. Did everything correctly and tried to copy him, never could. And he would always do it with a smile. So that, I think, really, really impacted people. And they were like, this guy's so nice. He's so good. He's so handsome. I want to be like Stats. And now everyone's like Stats.
I'm telling you, it's one of the reasons why he plays such like a slow defensive macro style. He's just a nice guy. He doesn't want to get in your face and hurt you. He's like, I'm not going to hit you until you hit me. That's usually the way it goes here with Stats. So I'm interested in exactly how he's going to be approaching this matchup versus ByuN, because Stats and also Classic in Korea have been kind of deviating from what feels like the norm, not just in PvT, but also in PvZ, in that they're transitioning very quickly into the Stargate tech, especially Classic, not afraid to go into carriers, even on just 3 Nexus as he's getting ready to transition to that 4th base. It's a play style that Stats has also tried to incorporate into his play, sometimes with success, sometimes without it. But against a player like ByuN, who you kind of know in the back of your mind is going to be on the aggressive swing of things pretty much from game 1 all the way to a potential game 5 and a best of 5, we might see Stats lean even more heavily into that defensive front here.
Yeah, it's going to be... I was talking actually to some fans as well during the signing, just kind of conversing and realizing that this is really a difficult match to call. My intro said Stats kind of on his way back up after military, and ByuN's kind of on the way down, and that is actually true. He really struggled versus Nightmare, for instance, and then the rematch curse hit, and that's, rematch curse. But seriously, he seems to be less confident and less aggressive. We are seeing a 3 racks, however, this game, which is definitely very aggressive, but Stats is opening with a Sentry, so he will be able to scout that fairly quickly. Defending it always can be a challenge, I suppose, but scouting is the first mode here. It's got a shield battery actually coming up in the natural, but in the mineral line.
Yeah, I'm wondering how many gateways Stats is going to go for here. Is normally with a Twilight Council, you'd expect at least 1 more to be thrown down in the natural to try and build a pseudo wall here for Protoss, but against the 3 racks like this, I'm really hoping Stats goes for at least 3 gateways and doesn't play too greedy trying to go into that 3rd base, because this can be a very dangerous push. If the 3 racks crumbs across the map and gets a lot of damage done with the opening salvo, the game is so hard as Protoss to play from that position. But this is another build that, on ByuN's side of things, if it falls flat, very oftentimes it's almost game over there for Terran. You are setting your medevac tech so far behind. The factory tech is delayed. If you can't really get a cost-efficient trade or at least slow down the Protoss with a 3 barracks aggression, it's hard to play in the mid game.
Yeah, it can be. But there's another problem. I want to actually talk about this fact, but remind me of the other problem of the 3 racks later. But ByuN has played more and won more TDP games than Stats. I believe that for Trigger, because Trigger's such a young gun. But both of these guys are pretty old. ByuN has played so much StarCraft, though, where Stats was definitely more of that typical Korean who hit his build and waited for GSL. So that's still an interesting stat to me. Yeah,
ByuN, especially lately, is one of those guys like Hero, like Dark, who will just grind, it feels like, almost every single online cup they can get their hands on. So, yeah, fun little stats there. As we actually have some units already streaming across the map here for ByuN. And Stats, although I think he's only playing with the 2 gateways back at home, the 3rd one is in production, he has not really missed a beat in terms of warp gate. He already has 5 gateway units out. 2nd shield battery is warping in, so I don't think this is going to be too scary for him, but at the same time, if these Marines are able to skirt past those force fields with stim and combat shields and just quickly start stimming down all of these units here for Stats, it can be scary, but that's a lot of gateway units there, Zombie.
He also has a backup shield battery, right? So let's say that ByuN sees, okay, that shield battery is targetable, let me snipe it. Stats, he probably should be thinking back shield battery overcharge if necessary. And then that should be very much an easy hold. So the problem with the 3 racks, though, and I've been seeing a lot more of them recently, but you do have a very late starport. So you don't have that multitasking drop aggression that a Protoss would have to be afraid of, but then you also have more decisions to make about the Colossus issue. Do you make the medevacs you need or the Vikings you need? That has actually been kind of a sore point for a lot of Terrans. I feel like against Stats as well, who's very dependable going into those Colossus, where either they go for too many, well, they go for Vikings, but they don't have enough medevacs. They run out of energy, they run out of health, they're not healthy going into the fight, or of course, they're healthy, but they have no Vikings. No way to directly counter those Colossus. So that can be a little tricky, especially when your starport's later, like a 3 racks.
Yeah, and I think for another Terran player, I wouldn't mind it too much having that delayed starport because, you know, the trade-off is that your standing army on the ground, it is better. It is bigger. You're able to pull units across to different locations with a lot more force than you would otherwise. But ByuN being as aggressive as he is, it is concerning because this is the kind of guy that, especially against a player like Stats, runs the risk of sending 2 medevacs into the main base and just losing them straight away if Stats is on point with his observer placement, because any starport units going down here for Terran, very devastating on the ByuN side of things. You really cannot afford to lose medevacs. You cannot afford to lose Vikings, especially with the Colossus already powering up very quickly here on 2 bases, even before the 3rd Nexus is done here for Stats. It's a terrifying proposition.
Yeah, you know, the 3 racks can be a very uncomfortable build for some Protosses to go up to, especially if they don't expect it. Maybe they open like a Stargate as well. That can be very uncomfortable, but generally it can be uncomfortable. It's that Stats would probably be the guy that I would say is most comfortable. Yeah, you have to play more reserved and more defensive, but that is Stats. So I think he's pretty used to this and having a slower 3rd base and build up. He knows that medevacs are out. He has to worry about drops. As you can see, the Stalkers were in position. But to your point, really got to pay attention to medevac snipes, because even if it's like a retreat issue and a medevac gets sniped, that is going to be big as we move forward into Colossus. Double-pronged attack, but excellent split here from Stats.
Yeah, I love this split here from Stats. 3 high-energy sentries on the left side guarding the 3rd base. The Stalkers can parry pretty much any drop that attempts to work its way into the main. And this is one of the advantageous features here of Golden Aura as Protoss is on 3 bases. Unless you're facing a tank push, there really isn't a lot of aggression that can punish you. And that's why Stats is powering so hard, quickly taking Gas Geysers number 5 and 6 here in the 3rd base, already going into Templar Archives while adding in, I believe, I think I saw a 2nd Forge there in production for a moment, or maybe it is just this first one? Yeah, just the first one here for ground weapons, but with all this AoE damage coming in soon here for Stats, could be a big mid-game push, especially once he gets that 4th base up. I mean, the mid-game power of Stats' army is going to balloon very quickly here. Even just now, moving across like this against the Biowall ByuN has with these sentries shows a lot of confidence. Yeah,
the tricky part for the Protoss, right, is that if they get into position offensively on top of the Terran's 3rd or natural, those Colossus are really good. Again, the medevac versus Viking problem. The problem would be usually getting across the map, because if you do get surrounded by this larger Bioball, then you're in trouble. So ByuN has to keep the map control, even if you can't, you know, obviously like go for it and punch it and try and win right here, right now. And that's where we're currently at. Stats not going to try and make a move on the field. ByuN not finding any opening, and we both go into additional command center and Nexus.
Yeah, Stats now with a 4th base. Storm about halfway done. I feel like this is the stage in the game where now ByuN can maybe start to peel Stats apart a little bit. You can see Stats trying to get a better split of his army. ByuN instead going to be pivoting all the way over here towards the 4th base. These Zealots looking to make a run-by happen. Do get caught by Marauders and Marines. And we'll see if ByuN actually decides to take down those rocks and start to go for some double-prong attacks here on the 3rd and the 4th, because I do think there is some small window before Storm is done. But ByuN, again, kind of playing in the dark. Of course, we basically have God vision here as observers. We already know Storm only just now is completing. I think ByuN is just playing it safe. He wants to take the best engagement possible, possibly a maxed army engagement with Ghosts, with EMP, to really mitigate the splash damage of Protoss.
We saw 2 Terrans try slightly different styles against Stats yesterday, though, because this quick transition over into Stargates has seemingly tripped a lot of them up. So one of them, you know, kind of got blindsided a little bit and did not have the right preparation. The next Terran actually seemed to totally be preparing for the late Stargate game and still did not manage to beat it. So the question I have is ByuN going to be better up against this style of play, which is, you know, macro, macro, macro into the Stargate. He does scout it. That's a good start. But I remember saying that yesterday about either Clem or maybe someone else, and it wasn't enough. Stats the one with that.
Yeah, but with ByuN being close to maxed out, I mean, I don't even think we've had much of any engagement up until this point in the game. There's a chance that before these Starport units or Stargate units kick in here for Stats, that ByuN is going to be able to set up some insane arc, potentially on the 4th base by taking down those rocks and coming in from 2 angles, where if he gets the EMPs on the sentries, on the Templar, he might just be able to run over Stats, but instead, it seems like ByuN is kind of content to play this a little bit more passively. Yeah, so it was Oliveira who tried to more so, you know, go mano-a-mano in that super late game. I wonder if him and ByuN have been talking at all, actually. Because it does seem to be one of the main problems versus Stats, taking them into that late game, or any general Protoss, I suppose, into the late game. Attack does seem to be setting up here. Stats going to try and buy some time. That Storm does injure tons of units. Shield Battery Overcharge is going to be available. Storm on top of the Vikings now as well. Little force field to create even more of a choke.
Storms so far still available, and the Ghost just cannot get every single one of them out of the equation.
Yeah, about 3 more Storms left in the bank here for Stats, and he has been so efficient with the Templar up until this point. Look, only 4 medevacs here for ByuN because of that late starport. Even another Storm adding insult to injury here is ByuN, despite his army size being so much larger than Stats, just cannot catch a break. The Templar control was top-notch.
Yeah. Really, really nice. I love seeing him actually play more with the High Templars into the late game.
No.
I think splattering them around your base is also an excellent move. We do have the Vikings landing, trying to go for some multi-pronged pressure. Stats does seem to be paying attention. EMP, though, on the High Templars. Where are the rest of them? Or does he... Well, yeah, he does need them. Where's the rest of the army, actually? Immortal's going to get targeted down. Where is everything? Stats... I thought he had more units, but...
He does. He's at 74 army supply. I think he overcommitted to dealing with the Vikings. And now the carriers, they are coming out. The Vikings did get cleaned up over there down by the 3rd base, but a really expensive trade on the top side there for Stats. I feel like a little bit of a better unit split there. Cleaning up the Vikings and then winning it could have been good on the top side, but now the Vikings are dead. He can really start to build some momentum with these carriers if he can get the interceptor count up. The thing is, I don't know if ByuN's actually going to give him that much time. He is still pushing this position, GG.
Wow, one more Storm would have done wonders there, but it was EMP. Shield battery is depowered. Big old mama coming in, though, with the hidden cloak there, and it's not going to quite save the day. I think eventually ByuN is going to push through sheer perseverance, sheer numbers, as the mothership does go down. So does Stats. ByuN managing to find that sliver of time prior to the carriers popping out to win with that ground army. Takes game number 1.
Yeah, what a patient game from ByuN. Basically waiting until max supply and then some to get the perfect engagement on Stats. And the Vikings going down to the 3rd base was such a good bait because Stats heavily overcommitted his army to try and clean those up, knowing that if the Vikings die, if ByuN just throws away his Vikings, suddenly, if I'm stable, my Stargate transition is perfect. I have 3 carriers. There will be limited anti-air, and I can ride the game to a victory. But instead, ByuN just absolutely hammering down the 3rd base was so clutch. And despite Stats with an almost immaculate defense here on the 3rd, just lost too much momentum with ByuN splitting his army.
Yeah, I wish we could actually get into the replay and look at what went down here, because there was only 1 High Templar, where the rest of them... That was my main question, really. I thought he had backup. I was literally just talking about how I love when Protoss put those Storms around their bases for backups, because this is so common for Terran, right? They see that moment that they're winning, and they're going to stim, they're going to run in. That's when you hit them with a Storm, and it immediately kills their momentum. But I don't know where they went. I guess they died, got EMP'd, went over to the Vikings, not sure. But they were not there when it was necessary. And ByuN gets that game 1. But I gotta say, that was a really tight timing. And to have that same scenario prior to the carriers popping, it's gonna be difficult. It really was a 10-second difference, honestly. Even if the Vikings did the proper multitasking force and the pick and choosing from the Protoss had to be difficult, at the end of the day, if the carriers are there helping those Stalkers and the Immortal with a shield battery, that's probably a hold up there. So just perfect timing there from ByuN. And now we move on to Post-Youth, which I believe was his map choice.
Yeah, which is kind of insane to have Post-Youth right here, but I guess best of 5, the series gets longer. We get some more crazy maps. Let's see what Stats is going to bring to the table. Spawning in on this top right, the red Protoss for Twisted Minds. It is Stats.
Fighting. In the bottom left, as the blue Terran, we do have Shopify Rebellion's ByuN.
The Shield of Ire. Man, that is a high quality. You got that printed out someplace fancy.
Yeah, that was not made here, that's for sure.
It's an expensive poster right there, man.
Yeah. You know, I'm so used to being the one on the commentary desk that knows any amount of Hangul. Like,
oh, yeah, that's right.
I'm with State.
Yeah.
You could have done that.
I got your back, ZG.
Thanks, man. Thanks. We should really try and get the crowd to do some, you know, very old school Pro League chants.
Oh, that'd be fun.
1, 2, 3, start fighting.
It's almost like going to a Korean baseball game. I don't know if you ever went to any of when you were out there.
No.
But yeah, the fan chants are just absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's a whole different experience going to anything in Korea as far as concerts go, because, you know, seeing their K-pop concerts as well. That I went to one, and it was pretty insane. But we have Stats going into another gateway expand as ByuN opts for a 1-Rax expand by the looks of things. We do have this kind of in-base natural. We explained some of the difficulties of it in TVT with positional units. Not as impactful here in this matchup. You just get that safety on the high ground, half gold mineral, half blue. And so ByuN gets some success, not necessarily off of his build order, of course, but just off of that constant aggression, constant looking around for an opening. Finally worked out.
Yeah, it's
They're
surprisingly
74-74.
I know, I was going to say, 148th map just played between Stats and ByuN, and they're completely deadlocked, 74 and 74. I mean, what a close rivalry. And it's interesting, too, because both these players have kind of had different arcs in their career. Of course, ByuN, one of the best in the world in his era. Stats, one of the best in the world in his era. Still kicking here in 2024. ByuN, he's always been one of the best players in Korea, even if he wasn't the top dog. But for Stats, really just kind of a renaissance in his gameplay, really revolutionizing defensive Protoss, especially this year, is so exciting.
Yeah, I don't know where the stats are coming from, but I'm reading it's 23 and 24 in matches against Stats, and 79-73 for ByuN. So ByuN wins a decent amount, but then Stats edges out the game 3 or the game 5, I guess. But it is exciting because now we're getting them returning back to form and battling it out again, and that means that Stats or ByuN could actually make it completely even, 24-24, if he were to win here in this best of 5. Not done yet, though. We finally get some tech choices down. Twilight Council for Stats, and ByuN going into a 1-1-1.
Even sending some Widow Mines, going to see if he can catch potentially an Oracle or something like that, but instead Stats, no, he's just playing this nice and safe back at home. Although we are on post-youth, this is about as standard as your opening is going to get here for Stats. Probably 2-gate blink with a delayed robo. Third base behind it would be my guess, unless something absolutely crazy happens. And on post-youth, this is one of the maps that, at least in GSL, I feel like we've maybe seen it once or twice overall, I want to say.
In GSL, yeah.
The players really don't want to play on it. And even in ladder, I feel like if I don't have this map vetoed, I still don't get it because everybody else has it vetoed on the ladder. And
I guess, yeah.
I'm not sure exactly how build orders change, given that there's a couple of gold minerals here in the natural expansion, because the way your economy ramps up, it is slightly different. Once that base does get saturated, it's effectively just another normal natural expansion that mines out a little bit more quickly, but there is some deviation. Now ByuN coming in, actually targeting that gold base. There are 2 Stalkers and a Sentry immediately focusing down the medevac instead. Now they're going to be going for the Marines, as this drop may be packing a little bit more punch than Stats had expected. It was not just a straight-up Widowmine drop. It's got Marines and Reapers, and now already multiple gateway units going down. Probes getting pulled. This is an expensive hole here for Stats, Zombie.
Yeah, I'm actually a little surprised he pulled the probes in. You know, Marines don't kill buildings very quickly, so maybe they could have gone after that pylon, and that was the scary part. But I wonder why he didn't just pull the probes away and wait for more reinforcements.
Yeah, it's surprising. I guess maybe he felt like with only 2 gateways, he just needs some kind of buffer and no shield battery.
Oh, yeah.
To just give the Stalkers time to whittle down the Terran army. But that was really a great drop there for ByuN. Even adding in the 1 Widow Mine just complicate matters. 10 probes in total going down over the course of this game.
That is a bummer, though. He didn't even get the medevac. Not a great start for Stats, as he is down a game as well. That's not particularly good news, but I believe that he can recover. He is trying to by being a little sneaky. We got that middle base being taken from Stats. So I don't know if ByuN's going to scout that anytime soon. He's currently setting up some harassment. Raven looking for something to be done in the main base. I think it just scouted the robotics bay.
Saw the observer. Oh, actually it didn't.
Okay. It probably will.
Barely out of vision. I think he saw the obs and it's like, okay, I'll bide my time. I'll wait a moment longer before coming in here with the auto turrets, potentially set up an attack on the front first. And until then, Stats just continuing to power up, rallying some probes out into this gold base. And this is the kind of risk that you need to take here as Stats after losing so many workers and so much momentum in the early game, but this is scary, Zombie Grub. This is the first real inkling he's getting of this siege tank aggression, and ByuN knows this is his time to go. Even dropping the siege tanks, boosting them on top of these 3 Stalkers. He knows he has Stats in a world of trouble, and yep, the Nexus gets canceled. Yeah,
that was completing as it got canceled, guys. So that is going to force Stats back on a 2 bases. Supply block as well that he's trying to get ahead of, but it just happened so quickly. Yeah. He also needs the gateways. Like, he just needs production right now. And he is trying to get into the Colossus. I don't know if ByuN can necessarily break him on the 2 bases, but being able to siege up your tanks really nicely. You still got that Raven, although no interference matrix, right? I mean, that is still a threat in the back. It's a good game for ByuN. And he's trying not to over-dedicate here, but as he's waiting for Stim Combat Shields on +1, he'll probably dedicate a little more when those all finish.
Yeah, basically everything has gone ByuN's way up until this point. I honestly think that he can just sit back a little bit more if he wants to and just count on that third base once it's done, once the investment is made and there's no payoff. And oh my goodness, triple auto turret dropped right here. Does finally he's got the robotics bay. 6 more probes going down in total. A pretty good trade there for ByuN as +1 finishes, and he's getting ready to snipe another observer as he's really applying pressure on Stats' side of the map. And with concussive shells, combat shields both finishing up very soon, and these siege tanks getting ready to lay siege on this third base, I wouldn't be surprised if ByuN went for one more drop and just, oh wait, I wasn't expecting this drop, Zombie Grip. 3 medevacs, really?
It feels like it's going to be an unnecessary gamble, but then again, it's very unlikely that Stats has a lot of units, even if he does try to spread against a potential drop in the main base. He just doesn't have that many Stalkers, so yeah, there you go, 2 Stalkers in the main, right? ByuN saw that with the Ravens, figured to be the case from then on, and no shield battery overcharge either to help out. The Colossus is a-coming. It's pretty quick, but that third base now not defended whatsoever. Stats gonna have to focus on trying to punish this medevac drop as much as possible, but then he misses the cancel on the Nexus. Either way, it was a bad scenario, but now you have a killed Nexus, and that is worse.
Yeah, and ByuN didn't get the best trade there in the natural expansion of Stats, but it doesn't matter. He's a 3-base Terran against a 2-base Protoss right now, and he is powering up with a huge army supply because Stats can't even punish this at 40 army supply. What do you do here as Stats? He's trying his best to chase it down, but the moment he sees how much army ByuN has, some clutch force fields are going to buy him time, but he cannot really contest map control. And for the second time in a row, Stats has basically lost the Nexus upon completion. He hasn't yet mined out. And let's not forget, the natural expansion here on Post-Youth, it's only got 6 patches. 3 of them, yes, are gold, but they're going to mine out so quickly.
Yeah.
He is on a timer. Look, even one of the patches almost completely gone.
Yeah, he's on a timer. You know, he's trying to basically stick to his road map here, on the third base, which can kind of work out. Adding in another layer of AoE. It's not here now, though, and unfortunately, he needs it now. Colossus going down, High Templar with nothing to do but merge into Archons. ByuN will take a 2-0 first game. A little more difficult. Second game, he won with that drop, really. But the excellent follow-up with the tanks to get that quick cancel is also very nice. It does seem like if he was hesitant about this matchup, he no longer is.
Yeah, that was a clean game from ByuN. I think Stats was a little bit caught off guard by the composition of that drop. Because, you know, 2 Stalkers and a Sentry, if it's just a Widowmine drop, yeah, you lose 3, maybe 4 probes. That's completely fine. You retain your Stalkers, retain your Sentries. Nothing's really wrong in the world. But the fact that Stats brought in the Reaper and all of those Marines and forced the probes to actually get pulled to defuse the situation, so many workers go down, and then I love the way that ByuN actually played behind that. I mean, the triple auto turret drop, he's able to kill another round of probes, and then we were a little bit skeptical of this triple medevac drop because we knew that if Stats holds on in the natural expansion, it's going to be a good trade for him, and indeed it was. You see a lot of Marines go down, even almost 2 medevacs fall. Instead, it's just the 1. But it doesn't matter because his economy is so stunted back at home that ByuN just kills another 3rd Nexus. And what are you going to do with Stats? You can't just sit on 2 bases. You have to hold this, but you don't have the minerals to assemble an army to support the Colossus. And that is GG. ByuN with an immaculate game, number 2, and now is only 1 map win away from advancing.
That job definitely messed up Stats, for sure. And again, whether or not he had to pull the probes, it was obviously going to be a chaotic hold. And so that was great at offsetting the guy. And then I think the map also really plays well into ByuN's follow-up plan. If Stats were to take the gold, you know, make up for all that damage, which is exactly what he did. It's very pushable for the Terran. It's not over in the corner somewhere where it might be hidden. Now I move on to Assigning for what could be the last game. If you don't want it to be, then cheer for this guy. In the top right says the Red Protoss. He is Stats.
And on the bottom left of Alcyone, first Shopify Rebellion, hoping to get the 3-0 win over one of the best Protoss players in the world. It is ByuN. Be-unbelievable indeed.
Yo, those guys' guns was unbelievable, geez.
Yeah, man.
All right.
I gotta go back to the gym. I'm feeling
suddenly we're just like, gross.
I'm gonna pull down my sleeves next time on the guest segment, or the desk segment. Don't look at me.
This is why I only wear sleeves.
Skin and bones.
I don't want to disagree with the stats, but the stats are wrong. I can't help it. ByuN did win a series. But it was Stats, then it was ByuN, then it was Stats, then ByuN. I feel weird. Sorry.
Just like the what is the fact-checking organization that happens in America? I'm so far removed from
There's
this.
a fact-checking organization? Are you sure?
Apparently they're not doing a very good job.
Yeah, I don't think they are. Whatever they're doing.
Anyway, that's you right now.
Yeah, that's apparently me. I'm a real stick in the mud too.
Rain and a storm on the parade. But
Yeah. It was during a team league, so maybe that's the difference. One where they do play like best of threes though, rather than just best of ones. But still, it does seem like Stats, since his comeback, does have a good win rate against ByuN though. That is true, 100% true. In this year, 2024, Stats has won more often, but now is really where it counts in this prestigious, very important tournament that gets you money, gets you points, and could potentially get you to the Esports World Championship. So can't do it here. Doesn't matter if you beat him in the Open Cup or whatever it was.
yeah, exactly. And for Stats, this is kind of a tough break coming into this series, already down 0-2. I mean, I know I'm stating the obvious here, but the fact that he was able to take down Clem in the first series of the spring finals here at Dallas, I had high hopes for his PBT, but one of the things about matching up against a player such as ByuN is they have so many unique and quirky builds they can come out with to just levy pressure on you, to get damage done. And Stats, although he is arguably the best in the world for Protoss at kind of rolling with the punches, absorbing the blows, taking the damage and mitigating it, and surviving into the mid and late game where he thrives, ByuN, especially there in game number 2, just absolutely throwing a wrench into the machine that is Stats. And hopefully Stats here in game 3 and potentially in game 4 and game 5 can iron out the defense, because I feel like Stats versus ByuN has the potential to be one of the best series of this tournament, or really any tournament it occurs in. But until now, and by the way, what a cute Widowmine placement there from ByuN. Even with a patch kind of with a notification that you know you're going to get there as Protoss. Still getting the kill on the Adept. I mean, this guy's got so many tricks up his sleeves. He's like a magician.
That was pretty cool. Not often where you'd find it. He also went for a lot more Widowmines too, something the Adept I'm not sure actually got to see because it died. I'm not sure it's all the factory building reactor. It is going to be a quad Widowmine drop, and that is something where you could just pull the probes away if you see it. And that is currently the issue. Does Stats actually know that there's going to be not just one, not just two, but all four? And they won't have cloak or anything, but I'm worried, right? Because if this gets more than 7 probes, then it's just over. The series is over.
I want to take a look at ByuN's player card again in the pregame segment, because that was some quick reaction time, dodging the pylon finishing so that it comes as a surprise here into the natural expansion. Still Stats with quick reaction, only going to pull 1 probe. ByuN with a Clem-like move, going to be buying as much time as possible.
Oh, well, hold on there. ByuN was the OG. Wait a second.
This is a new era, zombie grub.
Oh my gosh, no, you can't do that I can't do that to him.
Oh, no, that is not a safe place, buddy.
Yeah, okay, this has actually gone really, really well. He got too fancy, basically. You know, he could have either... Well, I don't think he could have rushed in. That would have been too dangerous. But when he realized he couldn't rush in the first time, he could have hovered and still been a threat, a really obnoxious one. As Stats takes third bases, now we have to worry about like a Widowmine drop and the main push, right? And instead, it's all gone now. It did not do enough damage as is. It lost the medevac as well. It was committed Widowmine. It was 4, not 2. And there's no amount of pressure, really, that Stats has to worry about from that angle. Although Liberator is coming, and another Liberator is coming, so I might be wrong. Stats still have to worry about angles.
Yeah, it's double lib.
Yeah, that's an interesting follow-up.
ByuN has been making some interesting choices regarding his starports recently. In game number 1, going for the 3-Rex, delaying the starport almost entirely as the first Liberator comes in and quickly has to retreat away. I think it will not die. Barely surviving there with 36 HP. But then here again in game number 3, not really prioritizing medevacs or Vikings at all. Instead, just going with area control, adding in 3 additional barracks. And so Stats is coming here into the main base with 4 Blink Stalkers, looking to one-shot some SCVs. And he's going to see no third command center, and he's probably going to be a little bit scared because pushes on Alcyone can be very scary with the siege tanks. And ByuN is powering up for a deadly 2-base push.
He is, but his entire first 5-minute game plan has failed, which was to have the medevac do damage, and then most likely have 1 medevac of 4 Widowmine and 2 Liberators. That is a lot to keep track of while also being worried about the tank push that's incoming that you have to track and you have to stall. Instead now, again, no Widowmines, Liberator was injured, and now there's a second one. I mean, these could even pair up with the main push actually and still be kind of scary. It means that Stats can focus entirely on what he's seeing and what he has to prep for.
Yeah, Stats should have a very good idea of exactly what's coming. And even seeing this Liberator here on full HP means that Stats should know, if he thinks about it, that there's 2 Liberators on the map right now, that this push is going to be heavy committed. And it's not really the Vikings or not the medevacs or the drops he has to worry about too much here in the early game. It's the dead center push. And surprisingly for Stats, it seems like he's feeling very confident, Zombie Grub, possibly because of that early game. He's already dropping a 4th Nexus.
That is confidence. I am getting some flashbacks back to Stats versus Oliveira, though, where we thought that he was very well in the know about Oliveira's push and then still lost. You know, that was a difficult map and a difficult push. It was faster as well, which kind of makes it more complicated for Protoss to pick and choose what they're getting. But I'm still, like, a little worried. This could push Stats too far all over the map. And then ByuN concentrates on one area, and Stats isn't there. It could be bad. But so we got drops. Try and enter the 4th base. Not going to happen. And they're looking to try and get something started. Stats actually knows that there's a drop somewhere to the left as well. Yeah,
he is suspicious. Very, very suspicious. And he might be thinking this is a delayed 3rd command center, but ByuN is still heavily committed on 2CC going for this push. And if Stats is caught off guard or even a little bit out of position, this kind of army with Liberators and Siege Tanks, it's not one that you want to arrive on your doorstep unannounced. You need to know in advance so that you can kite with the Stalkers, with the Colossi, get some damage in, slow the push, allow your superior economy to pay off so that you can muster the forces you need to actually stop the push from decapitating you. But instead, ByuN being very quiet, very patient in the middle of the map. Stats doesn't know exactly where his army is maneuvering, but still quite clutch on the defense. Is Stats so far able to blink forward, snipe off a couple of Marines, and now finally he knows this push is coming in. The target is the natural expansion.
That is an annoying area, and yeah, the Forge now is in a vulnerable area too, so that's not ideal. We got it canceled. He realizes he's going to lose it anyway. He's going to try and focus up elsewhere. I guess he had a 2nd Forge somewhere else. So the Colossus range is going to take care of this, right? This is not the biggest problem, but it can lead to the next problem. I really wanted to highlight that probe, by the way, but we're kind of past that. This has been excellent scouting from Stats, honestly. He's tried to keep track of whatever is happening, but he still didn't quite keep track of the actual push angle, and that is why this is difficult, because these tanks and Liberators and this choke gonna be difficult for Stats to break on through. Charge Lot's coming in from another angle, however, jumping on top of those tanks. Actually do a great job there. Stalkers plentiful enough to take down the Liberators. Stats looking to hold here. Colossus number 1 goes down. Number 2 still healthy, still strong. Stalkers right backwards. More Zealots come in. And with those Zealots, that might just be the hold. ByuN is dedicated on this attack against a 4-base Protoss. And if it doesn't work, the game doesn't work. Stats will not go down easy.
Man, what a hold there by Stats. I was looking at you a little bit scared before that final engagement came in because it seemed like Stats did not have the best arc set up to fight into that. ByuN was able to work his way between the natural and the 3rd base. He was able to siege up with the tanks, with the Liberators, basically get to the position that he wanted to be in. And still, Stats with his economy just had enough to break out, tie the game up. ByuN, I don't know if you can ask for a better engagement than that one. Stats was just way too powerful.
Yeah, I was with you. I was right with you. I was like, oh no, the tanks and Liberators in the choke. That's not a great sign. But it was apparent that Stats had enough. I would love to see that again. I think we're about to in a hot second. Yeah, tanks. Oh, you know, the tanks, they weren't, man, I hate when that happens. You do focus fire with the tanks sometimes, but then they seem like they hit it or they just get distracted by the Zealots, is what I'm trying to say. So the shots didn't go off on the Stalker and the Colossus like they were supposed to from the get-go. And that does impact how many Stalkers were left to deal with the Liberators, which would have been problematic. Liberators still alive, right? It just seemed like enough with enough angles. Did the trick. Of course, the beginning of the game was not great for ByuN either, so that was supposed to be a situation in which the Protoss was already ragged from the early game, and instead, again, Stats had a lot of time to think through what he had to do and prep for the actual battle.
Yeah, those kind of 2-base and siege tank pushes, especially on a map like Alcyone, have kill potential if there is momentum, but luckily for this guy on screen right now, he was able to thwart that momentum. He's looking to tie this series up 2-2 for Twisted Minds. It is the Red Protoss. Stats.
And in the top right, we do have the Blue Terran for the Rebellion. He is ByuN.
first opening here for ByuN.
Also on Dynasty, which I'm not sure we saw today. Or yesterday? We must have, right? No, it's best of 3.
I don't think we did. We basically never see the crazy maps in the best of 3 sections of any tournament.
Exactly. So I think, it's the first time we're seeing it. There's 3 maps with pretty low like pick rates, but they're going to increase as we get more best of 5s. All best of 5s today, guys. Everyone trying to head into the quarterfinals that play out later today. And if they lose here, they are out. No more second chances. Probe Scout from Stats, as he does need to be wary of ByuN's openers. Haven't seen any proxies yet, but you can't discount it.
Yeah, and with the gas first opening here from ByuN, we might see something like a proxy starport in this game, I'm wondering. It's an ambitious guess, but I really do want to see exactly where this gas is going to go here for ByuN, because Dynasty is one of these maps, much like Post Youth that we saw in the previous game in this series, that is just so hard to read because there aren't that many pro games played on it, because, as you said, it usually takes the best of 5s and the best of 7s for it to really come to the forefront in the drafts. It gets deep in the drafts. Yeah, now with the 9 map pools, it's made them more difficult to appear, but I did see a lot of PvPs with this map for some reason, and they do get weird. So the weirdest thing about this map, which we can't quite see as we look at the awesome speed of ByuN, Stats, again, a very precise player, not necessarily super fast. But if we do get to take a look at the map, you saw that ByuN expanded in the command center on the natural that had the gold, the minerals that are blocking your opponent from harassing you, but only if they have melee units, right? So Stats actually takes the one that isn't harassable over the mineral line, but it's not the gold base either. So he's playing safer, and that does make sense. Everything a Terran has is a projectile. It's a range. Yeah, and Stats actually going to be opting to go for this Stargate first here against ByuN. And I wonder if that's him being suspicious of something super tech-heavy coming ByuN's way, because Stargate units, in general, if you're able to get momentum going with them, if you're able to make some Phoenixes, if Stats decides to go down that path and intercept something like the first push of Cyclones with Marines, with a medevac, and just completely stop it in its track, it could snowball so hard, especially for a player like Stats, who oftentimes does not shy away from transitioning the carriers on 3 or 4 bases, as we were talking about earlier. And so it is going to be the Phoenix coming in from Stats. ByuN, he is going for a Cyclone timing, and this is very dangerous for the Protoss player, because usually this goes very well for the Terran or very well for the Protoss. It's very rare that you have an interaction between these 2 builds where it's just kind of right in the middle, you know? And so, that's a cute little wall there, too. Learned something new today. Of course, Stats knows that it was gas first. You can just click on the gas and see how much was taken. Pros would know. Plebs wouldn't. But so he knows he was fixing something maybe dangerous from the tech, and it is something dangerous from technology. We got Banshees on the way. Now, Banshees are supposed to be countered by Phoenix, and you have a Robo. Almost everyone goes Phoenix Colossus, no longer Phoenix Charge. So you got the potential to make an Observer, right? But it's all about positioning. If they stack up 2 Banshees, you don't know about it, your Phoenix are out of position, your Observer's out of position, the Banshees can still be good. If you're going to go for a direct head-on attack, though, and a really old-school like tank push with Banshees, then that gets really weird. And this is not an ideal map for that either. It's pretty big, so I'd be surprised if that was what he chose. Yeah, but he is building siege tanks, and it seems like ByuN has been kind of leaning heavily into the siege tank play over the course of this series. But one of the weird things about these Phoenix pushes, or Phoenix compositions against siege tank pushes, is it feels like very early on in the game, if you go for a fast siege tank push, the Phoenix, they do wonders. They lift up a couple of siege tanks. There isn't much anti-air in terms of Marines on the ground to really clean them up and allow the siege tanks to enter the fight again. But if ByuN is able to take it really slow and delay the expansions of Stats and get a huge bio ball to assist the siege tanks on the ground, and then you go for the push there as ByuN, it could still be absolutely killer. As now the first Banshee coming in. A recall for the Observer actually is going to allow Stats to clean this up with pretty much no damage whatsoever. Very well done. ByuN, you can see a little shake of the head. He knows that wasn't the ideal setup, was it? And it was no time bot either. At the very least, when you have a situation like that, as the Terran, you're hoping that, again, it finds the Observer out of position, the Phoenix out of position. It at least buys some time before it inevitably goes down. Not the case there. And so ByuN, not with the greatest start to this game. Building missile turrets now, needs to worry about the harassing. Actually almost tried to intercept the Phoenix, which is kind of cute. Not totally successful. Yeah, and he is actually going to move out, or it seemed like he might there for a moment with the Siege Tanks and Marines in the middle. Now instead going to retreat as 3 SCVs go down here at the gold base in the pocket expansion, and the next Banshee now coming in, but look at the Phoenixes!
Oh, I saw that on the mini-map. Oh, man, a lot of injured Phoenix, one down as well. That was a mistake from Stats, and of course now the Phoenix are out of the position, and ByuN would know that, so he's going to try and get some damage done with this lone Banshee because Stats had such a strong answer to the beginning when he did not bother building shield batteries, so nothing to help out here. Maybe 5 probes, 6 maybe, if he's target firing. I mean, might as well just sack the Banshee now, right? Yeah, there you go. 6 is the number.
It's a pretty good trade there for the second Banshee. I think still overall, ByuN not going to be that happy.
Yeah.
Not that happy. 2 Banshees with Cloak, only getting 6 probes in total.
I think 6 probes per is actually what you would want.
Yeah.
So
at least something close to that, right? And
yeah.
At least he got a little bit there with the follow-up. That is a win here for ByuN. But Stats, he is in a pretty good position. He's now adding in a Forge. His Colossus count is slowly growing back at home. And even scouting like this, seeing the Siege Tanks back at the third base is kind of a sigh of relief here for Stats. And instantly he's throwing down the Twilight Council. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him take a 4th base relatively quickly as well, because you know that if ByuN is going to move out on the map, if he is going to try and pressure you and take down one of your expansions, it is likely going to be assisted by those Siege Tanks. So yeah, the fact that ByuN is so reserved back at home with those Siege Tanks that have to walk all the way through the main base, through the outdoor natural expansion to get even into the middle of this map, which is a very long map, there's a lot of room for Stats to play with. And yeah, instantly throwing down that 4th base. He's going to be a greedy boy here for the next couple of minutes.
Taking it at the gold base, where ByuN took his natural, means that that is going to be a difficult place to hold if like the tank push did go that direction. But of course, as we develop the game, we're expecting more of a movement of the army of the Protoss as well. Stats can actually try and intercept whatever moves over there, at least see it coming. And then here's the army that ByuN is going to use, actually heading exactly that direction. You don't necessarily kill the Nexus, but you can bother the probes as long as you can, and then that's that. But ByuN on the natural gold base, he will mine that out eventually, right? It's going to mine out very quickly, and then it's going to open up another opportunity to hit him in the main base. So that's something you got to worry about also as the game goes on, and charge-out run-bys become more common.
Yes, that's now powering up with a second Robotics. Its disruptor production has begun, and 7 more gateways with +1 in charge, about halfway complete. So in a moment here, once this 4th base, especially with the gold minerals, oh no, the Phoenix, what are you doing?
Okay, that is
almost every Phoenix goes down.
Well, people don't play Dynasty a lot, State. Yeah. And apparently he thought that was plenty of room over there in the corner. It was not. We're still at a point where Phoenix are absolutely influential. I mean, at no point do you ever want to throw away units in StarCraft. Okay, SCVs in the late game, but at any other point, no. So that was a straight-up mistake. Stats now going to be dropped, and there is that Nexus now vulnerable. Phoenix 1 and 2 are going to try their best, man.
Yeah, their best is not very good. This Nexus might even go down. Recall coming through. Oh, watch out for the Colossus. One immediately gets Focus Fire down.
Woo.
Second one, a lot of damage from the Marauders, but is able to survive. And no, the Disruptors in the natural. This is a disaster for Stats, and it all goes back down to those Phoenixes.
Wow, this has all gone bad very, very fast. That seems to be what stops Stats from oh my gosh, advancing. As a drop on top of his lone Colossus will take that down. ByuN is all over the place. His army is extremely injured. Maybe he has to retreat from this battle, but look at the supplies. 60 supply difference. ByuN in favor. It is going to take the 3-1 versus Stats. A real turnaround, I feel like, actually, on his PvP. I was worried coming into it. Stats looked really good PvT. Seemed to be